My name is Dr. Jacqueline Kitulu. I'm a general practitioner for the last 24 years. I have today partnered with Ponea Health on this educational video on diabetes. So the next point is, how do we treat diabetes? Now, I'm glad that we've already talked through the different types of diabetes because how you'll treat them will vary. So if we start off with the type 1 diabetes, remember these are the ones who have no insulin, they require insulin. So these are the ones who will require injectable insulin as a must. So the insulin will be given before each meal. So remember, the function of that insulin is to ensure that the sugar that, whatever you've eaten, that the sugar that's broken down is moved to the parts where it is required. So the type 1 diabetes patients will require insulin. Of course, even as I talk about this, we know that there are other issues that may arise and require different treatment, but that's from the general overview, they will require insulin. They will also require lifestyle modification. And this lifestyle modification applies both to the type 1 diabetics as well as the type 2 diabetes. So the lifestyle modification, what are we talking about? Here we are talking about diet. Diet switches to a diabetic diet. So with the diet of a diabetic, and this will be the diet of a type 1 diabetic, the diet of a type 2 diabetic, the diet has to be low in processed carbohydrates, the ones that flood the system with sugar. So things like white flour, white rice, white potatoes, those tend to actually be very high sugar content. So when you eat them, they flood the system with a lot of sugar. And remember that the diabetic is already struggling with sugar. So the diabetic diet, in simple form, I usually describe to my patients that if you had a plate, and most plates are round, then you had a line right through the center of it. Half of the plate should be vegetables, leafy vegetables preferably. And then the other side, if you divide it into two so that you have quarters, then 1/4 is protein. And your protein can be anything from meat or fish or chicken or legumes like beans or peas or ndengu. All those are proteins, 1/4. And then the other quarter is the carbohydrate. Now for the diabetic, we usually advise carbohydrate that is a complex carbohydrate. So the ones that release sugar very slowly. And these will include things like brown chapati, brown rice, sweet potatoes. That sounds contradictory, but it's high fiber and a complex carb. Arrowroots, or what we call ndumas. You're looking at the sort of foods that do not release sugar or flood the system immediately. Where those may not be available, one may have the other carbs, but it requires that then you reduce the content of that. But that simple analogy of a plate where a half of it is vegetables, a quarter is protein, and a quarter is complex carbohydrate, that is a good diabetic diet. Of course, also with less frying, less oils. You do need some oil, but less levels of that, because then that comes with the risk of high cholesterol, which can complicate diabetes. And then the other is also the salt. Yes, you require salt, but low salt, not high levels, because many diabetics, especially type 2 diabetes, may also have hypertension. So you don't want to complicate that along the way. So that in itself is a healthy diet. In terms of snacks and fruit, again, we say for a diabetic, they'd have 2 portions of fruit a day, because remember, again, that fruits are sugar. What fruits have is fructose. Fructose is broken down to glucose. So when we're talking about portions of fruit, then you're talking about like a small banana, the little sweet banana, that's 1 portion, or a small apple, or a small orange, or a small tangerine, a slice of mango, a slice of watermelon, that's a portion. So we are saying 2 portions of fruit in a day. That goes on the area of diet. So thank you very much for having joined in this series, listening to hypertension and diabetes. It has been my pleasure empowering you to manage your hypertension or diabetes at home. You can reach me through ponea.com for my services for managing your hypertension or diabetes. Carry on.